talk today about joy, specifically fullness of joy, because who wants just a little bit of joy, right? But there are so many things in our world, in our day today, that threaten to shake our joy. Our world is broken. It does not function the way that God intended it to function. The fall in Genesis 3, it broke the perfect relationship that we were designed to enjoy with the Lord. And sin entered the world and brought with it tremendous devastation. And so there are regular things that we encounter in this broken world that threaten to shake our joy. But we're going to look today at Psalm 16 and learn from King David, because he knew how to both restore and maintain unshakable joy in his life. In Psalm 16, verses 5 through 11, King David says, "The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. You hold my lot. The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance. I bless the Lord who gives me counsel. In the night also my heart instructs me. I have set the Lord always before me. Because he is at my right hand, I shall not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad and my whole being rejoices. My flesh also dwells secure. For you will not abandon my soul to Sheol, or let your Holy One see corruption. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore." In verse 9, King David says, "Therefore my heart is glad, and my whole being rejoices." But the reason that he says that in verse 9 is because of the truth that he just stated in verse 8, where he said, "I have set the Lord always before me. He is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken." King David knew the Lord was with him. In fact, he knew that the Lord was so close to him that he could metaphorically touch him with his right hand. He knew the presence of the Lord. He knew that God was with him. And how much joy does that bring, knowing the closeness of our God? Because that's his heart, is to have us close. His heart is to restore that fellowship that sin marred. He wants his daughters to be close to him. And that's why he sent his one and only son to do for us what we could not do for ourselves, to restore the fellowship that sin broke, so that his son took the full cup of the Father's wrath and died the death that we deserved, and then defeated death and the grave, rising again, so that we could enjoy being close to him. And King David knew that the Lord was close to him. In verse 11, King David said, "In your presence there is fullness of joy." So the first thing that King David did to both restore and maintain joy in his life was he acknowledged who the source of joy is. It's only through knowing and daily pursuing the Lord that joy can be restored and maintained in our lives, no matter what hardship or what storm might be around the corner. When I find that my joy is shaken by circumstances, it's usually because I have failed to do what King David regularly practiced according to verse 8. Verse 8 says, "I have set the Lord always before me." King David knew to focus, intentionally focus on the Lord. That idea of setting our eyes on things above and not on earthly things, like Colossians 3 teaches us, regularly preaching to my heart, not to set my eyes on the storm billowing around me or the storm billowing around those that I love, but instead to set my eyes on the one who keeps and protects me and my loved ones in the middle of the storm, and the one who controls the storm and its impact. King David also knew the reality of his hardship. We're going to go back and read verse 16 in the NIV, or verse 1, of chapter 16 in the NIV. King David said, "Keep me safe, my God, for in you I take refuge." While we might not know what exactly was going on in King David's life at this time, he was asking God to keep him safe from something. He was telling the Lord, I know that you're my refuge. I take refuge in you. So there was a hardship. There was a storm billowing around King David when he wrote this psalm. And he was pleading with the Lord for safety. He was pleading for the Lord to be his refuge. So the third thing that King David did in restoring, pursuing, and maintaining joy, steadfast joy in his life, was that he acknowledged the hardship of things around him. He acknowledged that he needed to be kept safe, that he needed a refuge. When life is hard, we can have a few different tendencies of how we deal with it. We can convince ourselves that it's not really that hard, that things aren't really that bad, and we just dig in our heels, put our heads down, and plow through and try to just survive, right? Or another tendency we might have is to wallow in the hardship, in the storm that's around us, and allow it to overwhelm our spirit and allow the storm to become the lens through which we see everything else in our lives. But what we're going to consider this morning is that there's actually a beautiful dichotomy that's available to us as believers, that we can acknowledge the hard things around us. We don't have to minimize the things that we're going through in life. We don't have to minimize the heartache or the brokenness. We can acknowledge it, but then simultaneously, while feeling the weight of the hardship and the emotions that come with it, we can still choose joy because we know the source of joy and we know the close proximity of that source of joy. King David knew the source of joy, and he knew to intentionally set his mind on the Lord. But he also knew he could acknowledge the reality of hardship, that life was not always sunshine and rainbows all the time. He could acknowledge the challenges of life while not being shaken by them. He found fullness of joy not in his circumstances, but in the presence of his God. So as you feel your joy shaken, go to the source, sit with him, carve out time today to find fullness of joy in the presence of our God. And then do that again tomorrow, and do it again on Wednesday, and do it again even when you really don't feel like it on Thursday. And when the storm around you is still raging on Friday, again, seek his face. Spend time and sit with the source of joy, because in his presence we will find fullness of joy. I'll close with a quote from Chip Ingram. He said, "Joy is the evidence of Christ's presence operating freely in your heart." I hope you have a great week.